You know what's wild? Most fans sleep on spring training. They think it's just guys loosening up, shaking off the rust, nothing to get excited about. But if you actually pay attention, spring training tells you everything about how a season is going to go. And right now, the Toronto Blue Jays are giving us a lot to pay attention to. John Schneider just announced the starters for the first two spring games, and honestly, the choices say more about this roster than people are giving credit for. Eric Lauer gets the ball Saturday against the Philadelphia Phillies. And before you scroll past that, hear me out, because Lauer's story coming into this season is one of the most underrated things happening in Toronto baseball right now. This guy came in on a minor league deal. That means the Blue Jays weren't even sure he'd make the roster, and then injuries hit the rotation, Lauer steps in, and suddenly you're looking at a guy going 9-2 with a 3.18 ERA across 28 appearances. He made 15 starts and was genuinely one of the more reliable arms they had all season. That doesn't happen by accident. That's a pitcher who knows himself, knows his craft, and competes every single time he's out there. So when Schneider hands him the ball for Game 1 of spring training, that's not random. That's the organization saying, we trust you, we see what you did last year, and we want to see it again. Lauer is pitching for a real rotation spot this year, not a depth role, a legitimate spot. And that first start against Philly is his first chance to make that case in front of everyone watching. Now, Sunday is where it gets really interesting to me. Fernando Perez, 22 years old, right-handed, starts on the road against the Boston Red Sox. And if you haven't been following this kid through the minor leagues, you need to start right now. Last season, Perez split time between High A Vancouver and Double A New Hampshire. Across both levels, he threw 121 and a third innings, struck out 105 batters, and walked only 28. His ERA sat at 3.04. Let that sink in for a second. He's 22, he's moving through the system fast, and the ratios are legitimate. This isn't a prospect with one good pitch who's running from contact. This is a guy with feel, with command, with the kind of profile that makes scouts lean forward in their chairs. MLB Pipeline had him as the Blue Jays' 17th overall prospect going into 2025. But prospect rankings are a snapshot, they're not a ceiling. What Perez did last year with the strikeouts and the walk rate suggests someone who could move fast. Getting him out there in Game 2 of spring training, on the road against Boston no less, tells you the organization wants to see how he handles that environment. How does he prepare? How does he respond when something goes wrong? Can he compete at this level? Both games go at 1:05 Eastern, 10:05 Pacific, and they're both on Sportsnet and Sportsnet Plus, so there's no excuse not to watch. Look, I know people treat spring training like preseason background noise, but for the Blue Jays, this spring actually matters. The rotation is a real question mark heading into 2026. They need to figure out who's locked in, who's competing, and who might surprise them. Lauer is fighting to prove last year wasn't a fluke. Perez is fighting to prove he belongs sooner rather than later, and every inning this spring is information. Watch how Lauer attacks hitters early in counts. Watch whether Perez's stuff plays against more advanced competition the way it did in the minors. These are the things that tell you where a team is actually headed before the real games start. The season always reveals itself in spring if you know where to look, and right now, the Blue Jays just showed you exactly where to look. Saturday and Sunday, Lauer and Perez. I'll be watching every pitch.